Hello and welcome to our first episode of Careers Unlocked, the future of jobs in the tech sector. I'm Sean, the programme lead for EY Foundation in the North, and that means that I get to run paid work experiences with all of our young people. The EY Foundation is an independent charity supporting young people on free school meals to get paid work experience, employability skills training, and career guidance to heighten their opportunities in the world of work. We do this through a variety of programs and partnerships, and we also support social entrepreneurs too. In this episode, we have two amazing guests joining us to help steer us through the fast-changing, innovative world of technology. We'll dive into what we mean when we talk about technology and the impact it has on our lives, society, and most crucially, the workplace and the job market. We'll get expert advice from someone who has experienced this rapid change firsthand and knows the effect it has had on employers and employees. And we'll also hear from someone at the beginning of their career in tech, what excites them about the industry and how they see it expanding in the next few years. That brings us nicely to our first guest, Ebenezer Odubanjo. He is a student, developer, and entrepreneur. He started programming at the age of just 12 and now makes a range of iOS applications, both front end and back end. He is a graduate of the EY Foundation's Secure Futures program and currently serves as co vice chair on our youth advisory board. Welcome, Ebenezer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming along today. We're very, very excited to learn lots more about you and hear what you have to say about the industry. Our second guest today is Jo Wimble-Groves, co-owner of Active Digital, an award-winning mobile telecommunications company. A self-confessed accidental entrepreneur, Jo put her hand up and took an opportunity to run a business with her brother at just 16 years old, dropping out of sixth form college at the time. Jo is also a writer, brand ambassador, and advocate for inspiring the next generation of female entrepreneurs. Welcome, Jo.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so to kick off today, it's no surprise that the tech sector has become one of the most in-demand and fast-paced environments in which to work and operate, given the technological advancements we have made over the past 50 years. From data collection to robotics, app creation to AI, the industry covers a huge range of opportunities. So to get us started, Jo, why don't you tell us what you think when the word technology is mentioned?
When I think about the word technology, the first thing that comes to mind is an exciting one, and it's communication. And for me personally, being in this business now, this sector for over 2 decades, yes, we've seen so much change. But when I think about technology, I think about the art of communication, how it's changed and evolved over that time. But I don't ever want to lose that fluid part really of what that technology can bring us. I mean, obviously, we've seen over the time that we've had recently in the last couple of years how technology has really helped us to stay connected. So when I think of that word, I definitely think about communication. I think about a feeling of connectedness, and I think that's how we live and and how we survive in this world by feeling connected.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice positive feeling when it comes to technology. Um, and I completely have experienced that myself over the last, say, 20 years, feeling perhaps more and more connected with people all over the world rather than just my local bubble, as it would be. Thank you for sharing that, Jo. And Ebenezer, we know that you began programming at age 12. What was it that got you interested in technology in the first place, and why are you passionate about it?
Oh, that's a good question. Very, thank you. I would say it was just out of curiosity. I didn't really think, oh, okay, cool, I want to get into tech or I want to learn this. But I remember at the time when I was 12, I just wanted to learn and learn and learn more things. I just had a lot of free time on my hands. And I remember one day going to the library, my local library, and there was actually a makerspace that was opening up. So I thought, okay, it would be good to get. I don't know if we all remember those dummy books, how to program for a dummy.
Yes.
I've not been seeing them anymore, but I remember they were quite big back then. I say back then, it was only a few years ago. I got one on how to program an Arduino, and I actually saw a makerspace was opening up, And I spoke to the person inside there, and from there, I just hit off and I just started learning more. I was given the tools I needed, I was given the support I needed. And yeah, since then, I just started programming.
Nice. And talking about how you became passionate about it then. So you talked about that you started learning, which obviously incredibly admirable at the age of 12, that you just got that passion to learn and learn and learn. But then what took that initial learning to you becoming so passionate specifically about tech?
I would say when I realized that tech was an enabler, it really ignited my passion the more. When I realized that, okay, cool. If I don't see a solution to this thing, I can make it myself. I remember I was really interested in microprocessors and that type of that type of hardware back then, using Raspberry Pis and Arduinos. I just used to make random things like, oh, okay, I used to go on Google how to make a weather, a weather system or a forecasting system, and I just used to buy the equipment, follow it word for word, copy and paste, and make it.
Wow.
So seeing tech as like an enabler, it really ignited and sparked my passion as a young child. I would say.
Wow. I really like that, the idea of it as an enabler. So creating your own solutions effectively to problems that you come across. Um, Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Ebenezer, obviously you've been involved with a youth advisory board. You might know, and Jo, you'll soon find out, we do love a quiz at the EY Foundation. And now we're going to do a quick fire test on what our guests, so Jo and Ebenezer, may know about the technology industry and the young people that we work with. So what I'll be asking you to either answer true or false to the following statements, and hopefully everybody listening will learn a few things as well. So I've just got 3 statements in total. And the first one is, in research conducted by C.W. Jobs on business leaders' thoughts on technology and young people, 80% of UK businesses consider a candidate's tech abilities to be important when making future hiring decisions. True or false? I'll go to Jo first. True or false on that?
Well, I would say that was true. I'd say it would be high on the agenda.
True, high on the agenda. Okay. And Ebenezer?
I would agree with Joe, and I'll go with true on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so true. Cybersecurity, 79% is the most in-demand tech skill for businesses. So that's a top tip for those listening. Followed by data analytics at 76%, and combined with business intelligence at 76% as well. So 3 very in-demand skills there. Just to repeat, cybersecurity, data analytics, and business intelligence, very much sought after nowadays. Okay, number 2. More than 2/3 of UK businesses think that being educated at school in tech subjects should outrank some of the more classic subjects, such as maths and science. True or false? Ebenezer, you can go first this time.
I would go with true on that.
True. And Jo?
I would like it to be true. I would
Oh,
like it to
thanks, Jo.
be true as well.
Okay. It is true. So that is 46% of business leaders in education and automotive industries think that this should start as early as primary school. And certainly from EY Foundation's perspective, we have our Tech Futures program, and seeing the young people really, really thrive on that kind of reiterates the point that these skills perhaps should be entering the core curriculum nowadays. It would be massively beneficial. Okay, number 3. Over half of UK business leaders think children are taught enough about tech specialisms at school. True or false?
I'm going to go false.
False for Jo. And Ebenezer?
I'm gonna go true on that one
Okay, so why are you going true then, Ebenezer?
because I do think there may be a bit of a disparity between what students are actually taught and what um, people in businesses think students are being
Okay.
taught. I'm not sure if that makes too much
Yeah,
sense, but
definitely.
yeah, that's where I go true.
Yeah, so basically them trying to make an opinion on something that they can't be 100% certain is happening. So the answer here is false, but it's close. It's only 53% reveal that they think children aren't taught enough in schools. However, some of these businesses are willing to step in and help, with 86% of those businesses considering partnering with a school or college, which is really, really positive. So definitely some good learning for everyone to take away there. Let's take a moment to slow down. If the words tech, AI, metaverse don't mean much to you, that's all right. Technology and computing has been around for millennia, from the abacus tool in use since 2400 BC and still used in parts of the world today. But the term IT, or information technology, is a much more recent development. The term first became common in the 1940s and was used mainly by governments, defence establishments, and universities. Then the corporate world caught up and began to use IT in the form of spreadsheets and word processing. This created the need for specialists who could design, create, adapt, and maintain the hardware and software required to support business processes. And to do that, we needed a specialist language. So, computer languages were created, and experts of those languages started to pop up. A still very in demand job nowadays. Then, short history, then it came along the World Wide Web, an absolute game changer, which expanded the IT realm. Now, IT encompasses mobile computing, social media, internet, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation, machine learning, and so much more. It really does impact so many elements of our life. So that's a little bit of the history. But looking at the current situation, Ebenezer, you are part of a generation that has grown up with the internet and with the technology revolution in full pace. What impact do you think your experience of technology has had on your career ambitions? And what are your experiences of being a young person in the world of work?
Um, on the first part, I would say probably growing up as a young child surrounded by technology, in different sectors, in different industries. So in medicine, agriculture, I think it kind of put an imprint on me. And I would also say, also put an imprint on other young people that this is something really important. And there's something in tech that's needed even for the future. So I would say that that may have had an influence on, should I say, bringing me in and making me interested in it. It started when I was playing games as a child. I'll just be playing games. I'll just be playing games. And then you get more interested and you're like, wait, how did these games work?
Mhm.
And then, but before you ask that question, I'm going to go to the other question. I then first asked, wait, how do you hack this game to get more points? It started there. And then you just begun to, become more interested in learning how things work. And then you learn, oh, okay, cool. How do I make a game if I wanted to make a game? I think all of that really had an impact on me as a child and the other people that I have spoken to. And it really shaped me into becoming one who uh, wanted to, continue in tech and learn more about tech. I believe that was the answer to the first question, but the second question, I think I spoke too much to remember it.
So
Sorry.
yeah, the first question you've definitely covered, and it seems that growing up with technology in full pace and being immersed in it, so to speak, has really perhaps been a driver in taking you into that career. And the second part of that question was, what are your experiences of being a young person in the world of work? How do you find it as a young person trying to enter this world and have a career?
From what I've experienced as a young person, I would say there's been a lot of support for young people coming in. When I was younger, so this was 2016. I say younger like it was that long ago. It was not that long ago. So when I was about 13, 14, I started attending different hackathons. And I remember just being there and being the youngest person there alongside my teammate who was just a few years older than me. Everybody was like, oh, wow, there are young people here. They wanted to support, they wanted to know more about you, stuff like that. I would say it's been really supporting. And I can see that people have really lowered the entry barrier for young people. They allow us to know, okay, cool, this is what you need to know. This is, go down this path. There's a lot of people available to
Okay.
give advice, and I think that's really, really been good. The support is immense. It's huge.
That's really good to hear. But also, it says a lot about yourself that you've gone out and you've tried to seek that support. Because it's all well and good the support being there, but it takes someone with real motivation and ambition to go and, grab it and use it. So, that also says a lot of positive things about yourself. Cool. Okay. Joe, you've built a business around technology, specifically telecoms, in 1996. How have you seen the world of technology change over time since then?
Oh gosh. So I was just thinking about what Ebenezer was saying, and it really made me think about, well, even if I go back to my childhood, for Ebenezer, he's grown up with technology, but, for me, as a 13 year old, how we found our friends is just by looking for a pile of bikes next to the woods, no phones, no technology, real old school sort of stuff. And then I first got into computer games. Well, hopefully you might remember a Commodore 64. That was my first um, computer game that I probably played. Then on to sort of Legends of Zelda, which I was obsessed with. And then in 1996, as you say, Sean, I sort of was approached by my brother who was starting to sell mobile phones as a bit of a sideline project. He was 4 years older than me, so I was 16 and he was 20, and uh, back then it was the first time that we were giving somebody a mobile phone. So that's quite an exciting time. So you're not upgrading your phone; people are actually having one for the very first experience, and we were some of those people that were putting that technology in their hands. And once we established our business a couple of years later, we made a decision just to focus on giving technology to businesses because we felt they were the ones that actually were starting to give phones to their employees for the very first time. And that was my first interaction really of technology and being in our sector. And I was just thinking about some of the things that Ebenezer was saying about coming into the sector at a young age and what that felt like. I mean, for me personally, I was a young woman in a very male dominated sector, and I always felt a bit like the odd one out. And I'm sure we'll come onto this in a little while, but yeah, hopefully particularly for me, getting more young girls into our sector is really, really, really important. And so, yeah, we know when I think about the technology sector, it is so exciting. There's been so much change that I've witnessed. But it all started with the humble mobile phone, and it's moved on so much from there. As you say, 5G technology is just transforming the landscape in such an exciting way on the mobile side, from how we'll be using it on the operating table in hospital to how we'll be using 5G in farming and trying to make sure that we all have food on the table. There's some really good stuff that I've seen over this, span of 2 decades really. But yeah, it all started with the humble Commodore 64, I suppose.
Thank you for sharing that. And really, really interesting to hear, both of your experiences and Joe having that experience of, yeah, trying to find your friends by just seeing a pile of bikes through to mobiles and through to 5G and beyond. It's definitely, I mean, one of those industries that you could never ever call stagnant. I mean, it's moving at such a fast pace. It's sort of no surprise that people, once they're in it, they just get taken on this amazing career journey. So yeah, really great insights from both of you. Thank you for that. So sort of keeping on the topic of what is changing, earlier this year, the UK government released the UK Digital Strategy, the first since 2017. And the purpose of this was to highlight 6 areas for improvement. Number one being the infrastructure, data, and regulation. Two, ideas and intellectual property. Three, skills and talent, which is a very interesting one because clearly we have some talented guests today. Four, finance and investment. Number five, leveling up. And number six, enhancing the UK's place in the world. So, with all that in mind, the government's aim is for the UK tech sector's annual gross value to grow by an additional 41.5 billion by 2025, which would result in a further 678,000 jobs. A very ambitious target. But with that in mind, how are we to equip workers for such an industry, especially young people? And what pitfalls might we come across with such a rapid development? So these are the kind of thoughts that we're thinking about with such a rapidly growing industry. It's one thing, the industry growing fast, but are we able to keep up mainly with the talent to fuel that industry? So starting with Jo, running your own tech business, and you're no doubt you speak to other business leaders. What are the top trends you're seeing in the tech sector? I.e., are there any particular areas that you think are going to be increasingly important in the near future that perhaps people could focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on them earlier actually in our conversation, but yeah, just the first things that sort of spring to mind. I know I've spoken about 5G already. I think that is huge for the way that we can transform sectors that are under a lot of pressure. And we can use robotics, we can use drones, we can use all the technology that we've got to try and make our lives easier. Cybersecurity, I think, is huge. Again, you mentioned that, as well as virtual reality and machine to machine. So I think those sort of conversations are really exciting on how we can take things to the next level. And equally, when you're thinking about young people coming into this sector, I'm sure you've probably heard this stat before, but Dell Technologies was saying that over 85% of jobs haven't been created yet. Now, that's really exciting in the way that the landscape of our world is changing so much that when we think about young people considering a career, particularly even in tech, their role might even not yet exist. So that's exciting. The second thing to think about for leaders is when they're considering bringing talent into their business, which I think is the most important thing. So, a lot of businesses are very focused at the moment on ensuring they've got the right culture from the top down. That culture is all based around people. Technology is a big part of that, but the people that make the business run, I think, is really, really vital. And I think working in the technology sector will help offer young people the kind of flexibility that they want as well. And young people don't necessarily need to have a degree, like they've focused on a career path that on something else. It doesn't matter if they haven't fulfilled that. They could become a coder very easily, like Ebenezer did, without needing a piece of paper to say, this is what I'm accredited in. So I think working in technology, the business leaders now see the benefit that young people coming through can bring to their organization, in turn, giving them that flexibility, the skill set, the knowledge, because as you mentioned earlier, we've got so many young people who have grown up with this technology and maybe a lot of business leaders haven't. So it's ensuring that we're really setting that culture on a technology driven business, using digital transformation as a way to ensure people can work from anywhere, give them the technology that they need to help the business to grow. It's a really important time now, especially with the economic turbulence that we've been experiencing in the UK. We have a great opportunity to grow through technology and through young people and the skill set that they already have.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds like quite a lot for not only the businesses to keep up with, but also the prospective employees, such as the young people coming into those businesses as well, with it being so fast-paced. So I think that's really some important stuff to share. I mean, thinking specifically about young people, Ebenezer, you've achieved so much already and have had some impressive roles in the tech space. But for you, what are you excited about, and what perhaps are you nervous about when you think about future career prospects for young people in the tech space?
I would say I'm most excited about the fact that more opportunities are opening up. And it's, should I say, yeah, it does allow space for young people to come in and begin to get up to grips and to work with different companies and to solve problems, to work on real things. I would say, just touching on what Joe said earlier about not needing a piece of paper to say I'm able to do this, but you're able to learn. That's another thing I'm quite excited about. I'm quite excited about, let me say, the way the world is moving, in the sense that we're moving away from that traditional model of everybody must go to uni to really learn something. We're now moving to a model, and I would say tech has enabled this, where you're able to, go online, find the information you need. We're no longer in the days of, and I didn't really experience this myself, so I may be quite alienated from this experience, but we're no longer in the days of having to go to the library and read through, hundreds of books to find what you're looking for. Now you can just type and you find what you need, and most of it is free.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing. I would say what I am quite nervous about, although not too much because I think it is getting better, is companies not being able to relate with young people and companies not really being able to articulate exactly what they need from young people. I think there's a bit of a disconnect between young people and companies. And I would say it comes from a young person thinks this is, XYZ is what I need, when in reality, what you need is ABC. Young people don't know that because maybe it's not particularly expressed as clearly as it could. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and he's just started working for a company, and he was speaking about his manager telling him that, look, what we're doing here, it doesn't matter if you have a degree, you still have to learn how this company works.
Yeah.
You're still going to be learning, for a good 2 to 3 months, you're still going to learn, nope, this is how we do stuff. This is how we do stuff. And he's saying he's actually begun to see that firsthand. And from there, we kind of, started to speak about, oh, okay, what if a company had articulated that in the beginning? Maybe a student or a young person could have upskilled themselves in time so that, less time is wasted. I think that's something I'm quite nervous about, but I don't think it's too much of a, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What you're describing is one of the reasons that we do the work that we do at EY Foundation. It's almost bridging that gap between young people and potential employers because there is that disconnect and we're not always on the same page. So making sure that they are prepared and know how best to work with you, and equally, what they expect from you because you're quite right that well, like you both said, moving away from the necessity of degrees or certain qualifications and more on the job learning and more, like you said, Ebenezer, self-taught. There's so many things that you can self-teach as long as you have the motivation to do so, which kind of then puts the emphasis on skills. So, going back to Jo as a business leader and employer, what kind of key skills do you think employers would be looking for in candidates if we're moving away from having to have certain qualifications and we're more focused on the person and the skills they bring? What are those key skills, do you think?
I think that's a great question. And I didn't go to college or university. So, in the traditional interview where I would shake somebody's hand, I'm not looking for that extra piece of paper. I really want to get to know the person and what they can bring to our organization. And, the types of skills are good communication skills, good social skills, being empathetic in the workplace, being kind. One of the things that I've noticed more than anything is people do business with people that they like. That's not always the case, but in most cases they do. And I think, bringing kindness and empathy, as well as, being an all-inclusive person is some of the skills that we are definitely looking when we're looking to employ people. Also, I think it's really important that they have those good social communication skills as well, because whether you're writing emails, whether you're talking to people over the phone, we're doing a lot over Microsoft Teams, you need to make sure that you feel really comfortable doing all of that, as well as holding your own when you're face to face. I do worry sometimes with young people that they've missed out on, the role modeling and the mentors. I just wanted to pick that up on what Ebenezer was saying earlier, because it's fantastic that our young people have got so much flexibility to work from, some of them work from their lounge, their kitchen, as well as going into the office maybe 1 or 2 days a week. But I worry that we're not able to give them the mentoring that they would traditionally have had. So, when I'm looking at that young person, you can almost see them like a blank canvas and they just can't wait to learn, which I think is really exciting. But also just thinking about, yeah, where we can expand their skill set and really try to hone in on their strengths. Sometimes I worry that young people, this issues of perfectionism or trying to be good at everything. And there is that pressure sometimes in school where you need to be nailing every subject. And actually, the reality is for many of us and many young people, you might find that you're good at a few things. So it's really important when they come into the interview, whether it's online or face to face, that they can really articulate those strengths of skill, but also strengths of personality. And that's, I think, a real game changer when you're interviewing people now. I don't think it's all about what's on paper. I really think it's about that individual that's in front of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a really nice mindset for people to be in when they're coming into an interview that, you know, the interviewer wants to learn about their skills and their personality, them as a person, rather than, what's written on their CV. Which, yeah, can be really important sometimes, but sometimes not so much. That person can still have tremendous potential no matter what's on their CV.
I think people need to really do their homework as well when they come in. I think, job interviews are sometimes quite daunting for people, but if you're going into an organization, make sure you've done your background work, make sure you know about the organization, find out about, how they're growing and really make sure you know about their industry and their sector. So not only should the potential employer be really interested in them as a person, I think it needs to be two-way and a partnership. So it's important that that young person goes in thinking, I've really done my legwork to understand what this role is and what the company is doing and what their culture is like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's 100% a two-way street. It's got to be a right match for the employer and, of course, for that young person as well. So really, really important. It's a two-way street and everyone's learning about each other. Yeah, really, really good advice there, Joe. Thank you for sharing that. Ebenezer, have you found that being in this industry or trying to enter this industry that you've ever faced any barriers? And is there anything that you would like to see change in the tech sector to remove these?
That's another good question. A massive question. Um, in terms of barriers, I would say, and it's only with a few companies, it's not with many, but I think companies may sometimes be assuming in regards to what a young person knows and what a young person doesn't know. For example, I think companies, no, a few companies, I don't think it's the vast majority, but a few companies do look at, "Oh, okay, cool, this is what we need. We need this skill set. We need, only this. We need somebody who's able to develop programs in this language or who's able to secure infrastructure or work on DevOps." But I do think when it comes to young people, some companies don't really realize that a young person may not have had all of the experience required that they're looking for. Sometimes you'll see I've seen all those memes online where you see university students saying, "Oh, I'm trying to apply for an for a role, and it's supposed to be an entry level role, but they're asking for 15 years of experience."
Yep.
I've been seeing that quite a lot on LinkedIn and different social medias.
I've seen the ones where it's like 15 years experience in something that's only existed for 5.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just see those funny pictures of a little baby sitting in a chair and scroll. It's just too funny. But I do get that they're really hyper exaggerating what's going on, but I do think there's an element of truth to it. I think it would be nice if companies could maybe look at the circumstance in which young people are in and realize, oh, okay, they may not have had that much experience, and instead look at them, as Joe was speaking about, as a person. Okay, cool. They may not have had the most experience in DevOps. Okay, but what can this person bring to the table? I've had different stories where some people will
Yeah.
say they did a business deal just because of the smile. I believe it was the founder of Alibaba or something like that, Jack Ma. He spoke about just seeing the smile on somebody's face, and he invested in their company. And I look at it and I'm like, wait, when he invested in the company, he didn't ask, oh, okay, how are your finances doing? He just looked at the smile and he was like, yeah, I see something in this boy. I think companies maybe not be that sporadic, but they should be a bit more compromising and understanding as to, okay, cool, they may not be the best at this, but we can do
Yeah.
something with this person and teach them and bring them up. Yeah, so I do think that's a barrier that's maybe getting better, but something that we can probably look at.
Yeah, definitely. And that ties in very well to the points that Joe raised and I've seen it time and time again, these essential skills that must be on a job application, and I can completely understand why that would be a barrier and potentially put people off. Whereas in reality, they might be the right person, and give them a couple of months, they've learnt this essential skill and then they've got it. But actually reading that job application would have stopped them from applying in the first place. So it's kind of balancing the whole concept of skills versus technical knowledge, and making sure you get the right person that can eventually provide all that anyway. Yeah, really, really good point. I like that, and I think that could be applied to a lot of industries, in fact. Okay, well, thank you both for sharing your views in that area. Really, really interesting points from both. But now we're going to go to Jo, and from an expert perspective, we wanted to hear more about what her and her company are doing. So I would like to hand over to Jo.
Thank you very much. So, as a woman in tech, I do try to fly the flag for, what we're doing. And we are in a really exciting time in our company at the moment. And as I mentioned earlier, we've evolved so much from being a humble mobile phone organization. And well, we are an Apple partner, and I would probably say about 90% of what we sell is Apple. So we are very well connected with obviously one of the world's largest and well respected brands. But on from that, we have been trying to really think about what our customer needs, and at the moment, it's all around this idea of digital transformation. A lot of our customers are on the journey of digital transformation. It's just that they are at different steps along the way. So, um, not only can we develop an app for anything that they need, we are really focusing on sustainability. So, we're helping our customers to go paperless. We've got a paperless form solution, so we can help to eradicate paper within organizations. And we have also been creating a wellbeing app that we've been using for about 3 or 4 years. We used our own staff as guinea pigs, really focusing on well-being, which I know is such a massive topic. And I think we just felt in some organisations, even big organisations, they say that they are really looking after the well-being of their people, but how? And I think that's where we think the technology can really get into that granular level of how. I heard some organisations said, well, we just gave all our staff the Calm app. And I'm thinking, well, is that enough? So where we've got, employees at home, um, how do we know that they're doing okay? Who's the one that's reaching out to them to make sure they're all right? It can also be very British that everybody's fine, and they will tell us that they're fine, but actually they are potentially at risk of burnout. We know that people have said that their productivity levels have really gone up since they've been working at home, but are they setting themselves any boundaries? Are they taking breaks? So the app that we created has been fantastic, and we're just piloting it with some clients at the moment, but it's really helping to understand sleep, stress levels, and whether they're moving as well, any activities that they've been doing, as well as giving them videos on nutrition and even how to exercise at your desk. All of that's great. So it's supposed to be really, really engaging, and we've recruited some really exciting people that run the platform, which is a nutritionist, a strength and conditioning coach, and another guy that used to work, well, they both used to work in Formula One. So they know a lot about, high level expertise when it comes to well-being, strength, fitness, mental strength as well. And yeah, I think that's a really exciting conversation to have. And I think we mentioned earlier about how important the people are. They are the threads within any organization. And, if you're not using technology in order to make sure that your staff are actually in a happy place, they are fit, well, ready for business, and know when they can feel comfortable to ask for help. Like you say, you can build an app for anything. So we built it based around a need, and that's really exciting for us. Using the technology to actually help people and help organisations to ensure their people are fit, well, and ready to grow.
Nice. That's really, really interesting and really, really
Mm.
relevant as well, because I feel like everyone's experience nowadays working from home or working remotely, it is so diverse and so different. For some people, it really works. For some people, it doesn't. And like you say, simply giving an app, Calm app, to all your employees just doesn't cut it. So I would be really interested following this pilot to hear more about how that's gone, whether it's been and how that rolls out to a wider group of people, because I think it is important. And I think it's not going to go away. people are going to continue working remotely, and any issues around well-being that come up, they're going to be around for a few years, to say the least. So having something to address that is really important and very interesting. Cool. Right, well, we have covered a lot today. It's been incredibly interesting, and no doubt we could go on, but it does seem like we've only scratched the surface. I mean, Ebenezer, how are you feeling after that discussion? Did anything different come to light that you weren't expecting? Anything surprised you?
Um, I would say I'm feeling really good. The reason why I say that is because I think we've now come to a time where we're beginning to explore, you know, what's gone wrong, what's going right, how can we improve? And I think just because of the discussions that are coming up at this time, I do think that things are looking really good if we can implement and act on the things we have discussed. Maybe not just us, but other people listening. They may listen and hear, oh, okay, cool. So I've learned that. Oh, okay, Joe said that. I've learned that. Sad said that. I've learned that. I do think the fact that discussions are starting to come up in a time like this too, in a tough time for men, I do think it's a really good thing. And I'm feeling really positive about it.
Definitely a lot of positive things there, for sure. And for me, I'll be leaving this conversation very inspired indeed. I really, really appreciated both your inputs today. So I think to finish on, what would be really interesting is for each of you just to share a final thought or comment. And I think it'd be nice to give it in the form of a little bit of advice, perhaps to the younger generation. Joe, from your perspective as an employer, wanting those young people to come into the industry, and Ebenezer, from your perspective as a young person entering this industry. Joe, if you'd be happy to go first and share your final thought.
I would love to share some thoughts. So, as a girl and as someone who came into the sector at a young age, there are some things that are important to me that I'd like to share. The first one is that the role models are really, really important, and actually role models for everyone's really important. But for me, girls are doing really well in science and mathematics, but they are being put off taking a career in our sector. I don't have all the answers of why that is, but there was a survey that said that 78% girls were discouraged by gender diversity. And I think it's really important that we show young girls role models in our sector, whether it's scientists, whether it's the history of STEM, whether it's female engineers. I think it's really important that we help to bring those girls through. But for children everywhere, I think what EY Foundation are doing in order to just show role models across all different types of sectors as well, and from all different types of backgrounds, is so important, the work that you do. And if there was one sort of piece of advice that I would give to anybody that's listening to this podcast, I would almost steal a little bit of what Ebenezer said, which is to be curious. And being curious is so important, and it's more important than you can ever imagine, because so much of our life and so much of our careers is shaped by putting our hand up and taking an opportunity, coming out of our comfort zone in order to be curious. What if I went for that promotion? What if I went for that job? What would happen if I sent in my CV to that company? So I would encourage everybody to be curious and don't be afraid of being turned down. Success is not linear. Success is a long-term journey. And when you look at successful people, young people might look at us as adults and say, I don't really know how you got to where you are now. So it's really important, like we are today, having conversations and sharing some of the barriers or the obstacles that we've had along the way. Because success, it's not linear for sure. So, sharing those types of stories is really empowering for people to know that they will get there, and it is all part of the journey. So don't be afraid of putting your hand up, being curious, and trying something new.
Absolutely. Encourage everybody to just go for it. Really, really good advice to take away there. Thank you for that, Joe. And Ebenezer, final thought from you for young people similar to your age?
I would just echo what Joe said, and I would say take every opportunity. Some things may seem quite silly, and you're just there thinking, "Poof, why would I do that?" But you don't know. Tomorrow you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, okay, that thing did benefit me in this way, and I learned X, Y, Z from it. So I would really say it's extremely important to take every opportunity, no matter how silly it may seem, no matter how uninterested you may be, take every opportunity because it's those things which really build you. It's those things which open doors for you, even in the future. I would even add on to taking every opportunity that it may be hard for young people, but I would encourage everybody to try and use their time wisely. We can fall in the trap. I would say as humans, we do fall in the trap of procrastinating, not doing what we need to do. But really use your time wisely. One thing I'm learning as I grow, and I am young, so I need to stop saying as I grow. But one thing I am learning as I grow is that time is extremely precious. And I always look at it as I don't want to get to a stage where I'm X years old and I ask myself, why didn't I do that? So even as I give this advice, I do reflect on it myself, and I do believe there's a need to use the time you have wisely, because you realize as you grow, you have less time on your hands, you have more responsibilities. So as the young child you are, as a curious person you are, use the time you have wisely. That's what I would say.
Well, I must say, very wise words indeed. So hopefully everyone takes that on board. I think that is really, really good advice. Well, thank you so much both for joining us for our first episode of Careers Unlocked, the future of jobs in the tech sector. It's been incredibly insightful and interesting to hear both your perspectives, and I hope that for anyone listening to this, that they go away equally feeling inspired to just go for it and be successful in their future. So for me, a huge thank you, and I look forward to seeing how your careers develop further.